So I'm very pleased to announce that next up we have Professor Diana Laurillard. Diana is going to talk about teachers collaborating to improve blended learning. So over to you, Diana.
Thank you very much, Phil. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, yeah.
And can you see what looks like a slide?
Yes, yep, we can see that.
Great, okay, thank you. Well, as Phil said, today I'm discussing teacher collaboration. I'm doing it because the one thing we have learned over the last year of the pandemic is that there's a huge urgency now for teachers in all sectors to find out how to get the best out of online learning, as more and more people are discovering that actually it's a lot more interesting and effective than they realized. But that's a long journey of experimentation and discovery, and not one that every teacher can do on their own. So this has to be a collaborative process. That's basically the argument I'm making. Well, we started thinking about this some years ago as many teachers were moving into more use of blended and online learning, but they had little help or support in thinking through these new kinds of pedagogies. So we developed the Learning Designer, a free and open online design tool. It provides a structure for developing a sequence of learning activities, following on very well from Mark's points about the importance of structure, I think. It looks a bit like this. This is how you represent a learning design. So you can create your own, or you can adapt an existing design. And then either way, you can analyze what you create and also share it with other teachers. So I'm going to walk you through how this kind of tool can work as a way of enabling teachers to collaborate on developing pedagogy. Well, one of the things you find on the website is you can browse through designs contributed by other teachers to see if any might be useful. So I've done that and found one called Online Peer Review Activity. It's the sort of thing that most people need to look at some point. So looking at this on the designer screen, I can see it's pretty generic, so I could perhaps adapt it for my own topic. So I hit turn editing on. And now in edit mode, I can edit everything on the screen, and then that becomes my own copy of the design. I can put in my own description, for example, of what I want students to produce, whether it's a design or an essay outline or explanation of a concept or whatever. And I can edit everything here and outline the session at the top, which explains who it's for and whether it's wholly online or face-to-face or blended, specifies the learning outcomes and so on. Along here, it specifies the pedagogy, the guidance to students, and I'm going to expand this middle bit so you can see it a bit more easily. This is where you put the guidance to students, the way you want them to engage with the task that you're setting up, and what kind of learning is going on at each point. So this is a drop-down menu, and you can see here I've selected one of the 6 types, actually alluded to by Chair very kindly right at the start. You can choose from things like learning through discussion or inquiry or collaboration, and here I've chosen practice and practice again, and then produce. Now, what you have along here is the opportunity to specify the detail of that particular aspect of your pedagogy and how long the student takes. Here they're taking 20 minutes, here 30 minutes, 10 minutes on each of those activities, how large the group size is, whether the teacher is present or not. Yes, it's all online. The calendar icon is not ticked, so this is all asynchronous and so on. So this very detailed representation of your design can then be output to a Word document that then faithfully records everything that you've designed, which you can now share with your students and colleagues. Now I've clicked on the Analysis tab, and this allows me to see what kind of overall learning experience I've created for my students. The pie chart shows that it's mostly learning through practice and production, because it's been able to, in the previous slide, which I neglected to point out, it shows how you can, because it knows how long you're spending on each of these different learning types, it can work out this pie chart to give you an overall impression of the total learning experience. So that's what we're representing here. So this is a bit of acquisition learning. It's reading or watching or listening. A lot of practice, a lot of production seems appropriate for a peer review process. These smaller pie charts show that it's wholly online, that's pale blue. There's a bit of teacher presence, and mostly the teacher is not present, that's all the pale pink there. Pale brown, actually, this is the pale pink, which is showing that it's all asynchronous. So the whole peer review process is conducted asynchronously. And in the bar chart, I can see that it's mostly individual learning and some group learning, which is the point at which they're working in small groups to do the peer review process. And there's no whole class session here, so there's no dark green, which is what the other one would be. Now, there's no rules about what these distributions should be, but now, as a designer, you have the opportunity to consider if that looks appropriate for what you're trying to do. And then, if not, go back to what was in your design and redo it, rework it until you're satisfied it's coming out the right sort of way. Right, so that's a very quick partial tour of the tool. There's a lot more to it, and I'm giving you the links so you can go and have an explore for yourself. As I said, it's all free, so you just have to register. And that is what enables teachers to share new pedagogic ideas for how we do blended learning or online learning. But now my question is, how do we collaborate to improve our innovative designs to ensure that they're effective? Well, for that, we make use of MOOC platforms, which have already been mentioned quite a lot this morning, and we use FutureLearn here to orchestrate that process of collaboration. We refer to these not so much as courses as open online collaborations, because we're learning as much from all those participants, all those professional teachers, as they're learning from the course. So this is one that's run as a course on the FutureLearn platform. It's on blended and online learning design. It's free and open to all teachers in all sectors and subject areas. There's the link to enroll. And the next run starts on Monday, on the 5th of April, and you can sign up right now. And this is the link to the Learning Designer tool, because all the exercises are based on using that tool so that teachers can explore and exchange ideas for good ways of supporting their learners. So to give you a flavor of that, this is the kind of thing, one of the ways in which we enable teachers to share their designs initially. They can do it through the Learning Designer, but this is quite a nice visual way of doing it on Padlet, because here you can share your design with other teachers by making the link available on the Padlet wall, and then you can see what they've done, they can write in a bit of commentary and so on. Now the task here, this was in the second week of the course, was to create designs with the learning outcome to explain a complex concept. And they were given an initial design, which had been created by a physics teacher for learning about the water cycle. Now, using the Learning Designer tool, what's interesting going through that editing process I went through, is that you find that the content words are pretty few and far between. And most of what you're doing is writing the text to enable the student to engage with that content the way you want them to, whether it's a practice task or a production task or discussion or whatever. So using that tool and beginning with that initial physics concept, we've got an extraordinary range of different kinds of subject areas to which that same process of doing a bit of practice, a bit of interaction, a bit of maybe website searching and so on, and a whole range of activities there. And they've applied that to a digital mixing desk, a planet conservation plan, child development, conjugating verbs, writing effective conclusions and academic essays. It's just a very nice illustration of how we can share pedagogy. Which,
you've got a minute and a half left, Diana.
Thank you, Phil. We've always shared pedagogy. So we always shared presentations and tutorials and visits and so on. And that's precisely what we're finding that we can do here as well. Then in the final week, the participants use a peer review exercise to share and critique each other's designs. And that's the way in which we can now begin to build a collaborative community of teaching and learning innovation. So this is the kind of bold future we can now envisage, teachers sharing innovative ideas in this collaborative community. And in this step, we're asking them at the end, do you think this would be valuable for the teaching community? And this is one of the, this is typical of the kinds of answers that come up in that conversation, although it is very well expressed. Sharing learning designs is highly important for expertise exchange. It can bridge the gap. It can foster transnational cooperation, create a universal experience that will benefit experienced and less experienced teachers, and so on. So yes, I mean, they do believe in it. So my strong claim is if we work together, we can share the great innovations we need to guide the transformation to this bold new future for teaching, where we don't allow others like corporate IT to guide it for us, we do it ourselves. And if we do this, it will also empower the teaching profession to be more powerful consumers of the way technology is used in education. And does it work? Well, in the discussions, people are very enthusiastic for this. And yes, some of them did submit their designs to be evaluated for publication in the curated design section. You can see from here quite a wide range of subject areas and sectors: commercial awareness, skills of observation analysis, Year 4 shape and space, learning designs, and so on. So yes, it could work, although of course this is still early days. So to summarize, teachers do enjoy working with the learning designer and this kind of detailed forensic analysis of what the design should be like. Not for everything we do, but for those sessions where we need to think through carefully how to optimize the blend. And they do see the point of sharing and peer review, which is exactly what we do in the world of academic science and scholarship, to build knowledge and take the field forward. And we'll do all this much better if we share these new ideas. So that's the request. That's what I'd really like to hear your comments on. And of course, we now do have the tools to do this. And if you're interested in joining us in that course, there's the link. Thank you very much, Phil.
Thank you, Diana, and I strongly recommend everyone does have a look at that link. We will stick it in the chat or the question and answer, so you can all take a look at that at your leisure. We do have some questions for you, but we're a bit short of time, so I'll just ask a couple if that's okay, Diana.
Fine.
The first one we have from Sally Hallsworth, and he said, what methods have you found effective to get lecturers to take part in this and think differently from previous design? So, for example, a lecture and then Q&A.
Well, just by example, in a sense. I mean, by engaging them in this kind of new ways of thinking and looking at examples of what other teachers have done. So in the course, we got teachers in schools, colleges and universities who've already done this for years to show what they've done. And other teachers are the best way to convince teachers what to do. So just being able to show them some, they're just not aware of what the opportunities are, and demonstrating that, and then scaffolding them through that process, not just sort of plunging them in the deep end, but scaffolding through is precisely what people need, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have another one as well, and this is anonymous, I think. It says, Diana, this tool looks brilliant. I'm curious how the timings get refined. Is there student insight once the tasks are implemented?
Oh, yes. I mean, there's lecturer insight too, as well, of course, because one of the first things you do is you design far too much stuff. And one of the things in the top of the tool is you define your total learning time you need. And then it also tracks the total learning time you've designed. And the latter is always far more than the former. So just keeping track of what you're really expecting of students to begin with is important. And then once you run it, of course, when you run things in reality, nothing works out quite the same way as you hoped it would. So you go back and change it. And also you can get your students to comment on your design. As I said, you can sort of publish it for them. They can write on it, annotate it, and say, well, this was far too much time here, and we squeezed this too much, and so on. So yes, there's an opportunity for real reflection and refinement of how we understand how to assign time to these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I could go on all day with these questions. There are so many. So I'm so sorry.
I'll go back to the chat, Phil, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Did I manage to stop sharing?